after-school builders, Happyakrz here, and I'm so excited for our first build. In November on the 19th is Philanthropy Day, and as you'll learn in your after-school program, philanthropy is all about fundraising within the community for special programs just like this one. Mrs. Dode here at Grant Middle School and Grant Elementary has written some grants, and local foundations stepped up and helped to financially support this. So that's philanthropy in action, and without them we wouldn't be able to do this program. So we're really excited. Typically philanthropy is showcased, it's identified by icons like the hand or a giving heart. So when Mrs. Doe told me about Philanthropy Day, I decided to create this kit, which is basically a hand and a heart. And you'll notice that this design in the front, it kind of looks like a double F, which it is. And that is the logo of the Fremont Area Community Foundation. And for many, many years, the Fremont Area Community Foundation has helped support programs just like this one for Grant and the schools and districts in Newaygo County. So this was our way of saying thank you to them for being such a support. And I hope that you enjoy the kit. It's really fun to build, and because of the way that it moves, once you're finished, you can make it do all kinds of things like a normal hand would do. But enjoy, and here come the instructions.
I'd like to start today by talking a little bit about Lego terminology. The only way we can really share ideas is if we have common terms, and because Lego has their own names, we should kind of talk about those. So the most basic part that Lego makes is a brick. And it's typically 3 plates high, but it's just a standard brick that has knobs on it and nothing on the sides. They then have modified bricks that have things on the sides like studs or clips or handles, and you'll hear me use those terms while we're in the midst of our builds. We also have things that are called plates, and the plates are thinner, still are pretty basic though. They only have studs, and we refer to them by their length and width. So 4x6 plates, 2x3 plates, 2x4 plates, 1x2 plates. When those get additions on the sides, we call them plates modified. So here we have a 1x2 plate with a side handle, closed, and clips. We also have round plates, and you'll see those listed after the plate heading. Wedges are any plates or bricks that have angles on the sides cut in. There are also wedge bricks, but these are wedge plates. Anything with a bar on it, or a tuba pipe, is called a bar, and that one was an antenna. Tiles are the plates that have no studs on them. So they have round tiles and they have straight tiles. We'll use quite a bit of those throughout our builds this year. Slopes, I used to call these roof tiles, but slopes are anything that you can see has an actual slope on it. It's a non-straight decline or incline on the side of the brick. Techniques are pins and axles that help hold things together. This is a little half guy, and we'll use him quite a bit throughout the build. So now let's take a look at parting out the kit. When you open up your box, you're going to have 2 bags of parts, and I like to use these trays to break out my parts. Obviously the larger pieces can just go off to the side, but when it comes to the small tiny pieces, and sometimes we're going to have lots of similar pieces, sometimes it's just easier to have them parted out. Everybody builds their own way, and this just happens to be the way that I like to do it. I like to part out my kit first so I can see everything that's in the kit parts-wise. And then when I start looking through the instructions, then I know exactly where to find the pieces that I'm looking for. Throughout the videos for our builds this year, you'll see me push the video into fast forward motion. That's just to kind of keep our time to a minimum so that these videos don't get super long. You can always go back and replay if you missed something. But obviously here I've finished parting out my kit. Now we're ready for the build. You may also want to have the PDF file of the instructions handy, although you should be able to follow the video along no problem. But step one, all the steps will be shown in the bottom right hand corner, so you can follow along and find out what step we're on. And prior to each step, actually placing the parts onto the build, I will place them up on that piece of white paper. That way you can tell exactly what parts we should have for this step. It lets me know when I've actually finished a step. So when I'm out of parts, I'm ready to move on to the next step. Here we're building the palm portion, the center portion of the hand for this hand and heart model. This section is all about building a solid and strong foundation for our build. The palm is what is actually going to rest on the table the whole time, so this is our base. Step 3 is actually going to start adding some of the functional elements for the fingers and thumb. And these pieces will allow us to be able to manipulate the fingers and bend them in the build so that we can create different shapes of our hands. With these small 1x1 rounded plates with the little handles on the ends, you don't have to get those perfectly positioned when you put them on the first time. Fortunately, those could be swiveled once the next layer after the layer goes on. So just try to get them in the right position at least so that you know that the fingers are coming out in front. And then these next plates in step 4 will go on top and hold everything in place nice and tightly. Now we have our basic palm ready to go for step 5, which starts the thumb. In some cases, the exact order of the parts going on to each step is a little tricky to develop in the PDF file. So in some cases, I'm going to team up steps. Like in this case, I'm doubling up step 9 and step 10, and basically just showing you all the parts that are necessary for this segment. So once those parts are pulled, then you can put them together and refer back to the PDF of the instructions. That way you can make sure that you've got all the parts necessary. But in this case, I will try to show the front and back of each step so that you can always be sure that you're keeping track and you're being accurate to the build. One of my favorite parts in all of LEGO production is the 2x2 round plate boat stud. It's just a cool element that's got a smooth round surface on the back, and I'm using it in this kit to show basically all of the knuckles in the hand. It also is a nice color additive because it's part of the color of the Fremont Area Community Foundation logo. So it gives a bit of flair and a bit of color, but it also is just a kind of a cool element that gives more of an organic feel, and it doesn't look quite so mechanical. Each of the fingers and the thumb in the hand are made up of 3 different segments, and each segment will end in the 2x3 curved plate with the hole in it. but in each case we'll build the 3 segments and then we'll attach them to the hand palm portion. Once they're on there, then you can kind of adjust the position to get the feel that you're looking for. So now the thumb is complete, and we move on to the forefinger, your pointer. There are a lot of ways in the Lego world to create a hinge in parts that can move, can bend, and open and swing. In this particular kit, I chose to use clips and handles. The handles are the little pieces with the bars in the middle, and usually I use a closed end bar. The clips just look like a little claw, kind of like the Lego minifigure hands. Because those allow for a nice smooth swing when you're trying to manipulate and bend the pieces once they're put together. There are other joints that we'll see in future builds that are more rigid, they hold tighter, but in this case we wanted something that was relatively smooth so that we could really put the fingers in any position that we want. Now the 3 segments of the forefinger are done, so I'm assembling those. And then once they're assembled, we'll add them to the main body, and you can see that small clip will go onto the small handle. And now you can kind of adjust. You just need to be a little forceful with it. Just be gentle, but you can kind of press the side of that handle to swing into the shape or the position that you'd like it to start. So now we move on to the middle finger. Whenever applying a boat stud to your parts, make sure that you cover as many as you can with your design to help stability. In this case, we're covering 3 small parts, so the boat stud not only is a nice cosmetic or aesthetic look, meaning it looks nice and smooth, but it's also creating stability in your build and making sure that all of your parts are going to hold together nice and tightly. Now our middle finger is finished. We can assemble the segments, and we can place it onto the palm. Again, the clip onto the small handle, and if you need to, you can adjust them side to side or bend them just to help make that hand look. This is the example that I'm looking for, so the hand is getting there. It's looking pretty good. Now we start with the ring finger. Now sometimes I make mistakes, and I kept this in the edit so that you could see that everybody makes mistakes. Now in this particular case, I just pulled one too many parts that I didn't need. So I removed that part, put it back in the case, and that will come onto the kit later, but for now we'll just keep moving forward. Don't worry if you make a mistake. You can always go back and take something apart or rebuild it. That's the great part about Lego. You can always start over again, even if it's just a step. That's the final steps for the ring finger, so we assemble that piece by piece, segment by segment, clip it in place, little adjustments. Looking good. On to the pinky. On a side note, we've made sure, as well as we can, that all parts necessary for every kit are in your box. But if you ever find that one of the parts that you're looking for, you simply can't find it, it's not in your kit, or maybe you have a part that you shouldn't have, everybody makes mistakes, and once in a while we might slip past something with the thousands of parts that we're dealing with. So just go to your after-school program supervisor, the teacher who's in charge, and let them know what you are missing, and we are supplying them with some extra parts, so that if your kit is missing anything in particular, they should have an extra for you, so that your kit can be complete. Now we're finished with pinky, and we'll assemble that finger segment by segment, and then apply it to the palm. Now we've got a hand that looks pretty close to my hand. The next steps will be including the logo for the Fremont Area Community Foundation onto the palm of our hand. And to do that, we're using a number of tiles. We have 1x2, 1x1, and quarter round tiles in two different colors, blue and dark blue. So just follow the directions, and what I'm doing here, just try to position them. The tiles, especially 1x1s, they don't always sit flush or perpendicular to the edges of the plate, so sometimes you might have to try to turn them a little bit to make them sit better. But it's just it's an easy little thing to make them look, your design look that much cleaner. And that's the logo. Looks pretty good, huh? Now we move on to the heart. This is basically just a stacker build. We're going from the bottom up. but we'll be using some slopes and some curved slopes in ways that maybe you haven't used them before. In step 61, we're using two 1x1 bricks with one stud on the side. Make sure those studs point to the outside edge of the heart. You'll understand why in a couple minutes. Usually when building with Lego product, you have pretty mechanical or rigid geometric shapes that aren't really organic. And by organic, I mean just smooth flowing shapes. So in this case, we could build a heart that was all built on angles and sloped pieces, but I wanted to have some curved plates here on the side. So we're taking the curved slopes, adding a small 1x1 plate, and then these are going to be added sideways onto those studs from the previous 1x1 bricks to give more of a rounded edge to the heart. That gives it a little bit more organic feel and makes it look more natural. I'm sorry about the fuzziness of this, the camera wasn't in focus, but the little half pin fits right into the bottom of that plate on the heart, and then the antenna bar fits nicely on the palm, and then you can just slot the heart right into the end of the antenna. And with that, our model is finished. Thanks again for joining with me today on this build. It's been a lot of fun. And thanks again to the Fremont Area Community Foundation and all the other groups who help us do the projects that we can do.